Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, Lie to Me, Cheat Me Out of My Hard-Earned Bonus, Threaten Me with Dismissal. Let me help you with your current projects. Some background for context. For the last 6 years, as of last September, I worked for my country's Civil Prosecution Office. What we do is protect the interests of the state in civil cases, as a counterpart to the prosecution office, which represented in criminal cases. For the first 4 years of my career, I worked abroad, seconded to an international court, as a representative of the state. While I was there, I had heard that things had gone south with the appointment of a new boss. But since I was 2,000 miles away, I was minding my own business, turning in my work regularly and generally not getting into the whole mess that had started brewing back home. My mandate ended and I was returned back home to work for the central office. I was appointed in the office representing us in international courts and arbitration. As soon as I started working there, I saw what everybody else, longtime colleagues, was complaining about. I knew that the workload and schedule would be quite burdensome, but then again so was when I was working abroad. After a few months I started noticing things that left me at first puzzled and after a while enraged. The new head of department had fired older qualified staff to hire new staff who had, according to her, finished prestigious schools and were extremely accomplished in that line of work. Problem was that these new recruits, for the first 6 months on their job, barely even touched a single case. Even when they attempted to turn in a report or brief, things were sent back to me and a couple of other colleagues for a double check. Seldom the reports and briefs had to be redone in their entirety due to fundamental problems. I first thought this was normal since we were there for a longer time and knew the precise procedures, but this went on for more than a year. I approached my head of division and asked what the whole deal was with work of capable workers needing double checks and why their workload was so light while we were being assigned more than 15 cases a month with a plethora of other miscellaneous duties to be met simultaneously. This is the part where the puzzled phase ended, and the rage started. They were all kids or close family of friends of the new boss, who had been hired as a favor, etc., etc. I complained regarding this problem, but they fell on deaf ears. This also bought me a couple of enemies in the office. Workload was dumped on me systematically with the new guys just hitting Facebook and whatever all day long. The worst part was that they were being blatant in their disregard for their responsibilities and how their work was being reassigned to me and my colleagues. Things went like this for some time. I started in the meantime to look for another job, despite loving the current work I was doing. It had become too much to handle. Working days 9 to 8 p.m. and most weekends, all without OT, and with the higher-ups complaining that work was not being done on time. Things peaked when an international court started a program of translation of its key judgments for the year. It was a program which provided for funds for the translation from English into the local language. Our office, as a coordinator, had to find the people to do the translations and publish it. Lo and behold, they made us do the translation, something completely out of our scope of work, and mind you, are illegal. We complained but were subtly threatened with dismissal or some other form of reprisal. We were at least promised some sort of bonus for the work done. On top of all the work, I had now to translate and edit approximately 450 pages of court judgments. It took us 3 months to finish the whole process, but in the end, we were pleased with what we had done. Publication day comes around and we were told that there was no money for the bonuses on our work since budget was tight. We felt so betrayed and at the same time huge idiots for believing something good would come out of it. What made us feel even worse was the fact that the office had paid thousands of euros to hold the publication event, all while we were on a tight budget. That was the worst week of my career. In the meantime, I had finally gotten a couple of job offers, but I had to wait for a couple of months for the new workplaces to start their activity. I could not wait to leave that toxic environment. Exactly 5 weeks before I was to leave the job, we catch wind of a new project on translation. We get called into our boss's office and are told that we would repeat the procedure, but this time we would get paid for certain at the end of the job. Everybody was looking down, quite unhappy and in disbelief apart from me, who told them I would be more than happy to take even a larger burden, since I had finished with most cases for the next 3 months. All while smiling ear to ear and thinking to myself, F you. 3 weeks into work and I had done in total 5 out of 600 pages of translation, while excusing myself with random small work that had to be done. I could not wait to give in my notice. Friday comes by and I submit my 2 weeks' notice. Everybody was in disbelief I had found another job, since I had not even once talked about my job hunt with anyone. First week goes by with me slacking off the whole time. One of the new additions to the office, boss's lickspittle, ratted me out. I was called into the office and asked for explanations. I promptly explained that I was closing off all the remaining cases, completing the procedures for transfer of files, talking out things with HR over the process and other general issues that I had to iron out before leaving. I did not want to leave anything that would jeopardize my departure or give the possibility to my boss to fire me instead of me being able to quit without besmudging my record. I told her that I was unable to tend to the translations since I had more urgent things to do. She reminded me that I had to finish it before leaving. I plainly said no, and as of next Monday, not my job. She started screaming and cursing, seeing as this was her pet project, and threatened me with dismissal over non-completion of a superior's request, order. That is when I cut her off and told her that she could not fire me for not following an illegal order. My line of work as well as the description of my position does not provide for me to do these translations. I threatened her that if she did something to ruin my record, I would gladly meet her in court where things would go public, and not very good for her. Next day I got a notification from HR that my papers were ready, and I could actually leave early. Went back to my office, made a copy of all the files I had worked on, since I knew the IT guys would wipe everything, packed all my stuff, met my close colleagues, tried to explain to the other guys where every file was in case they needed it and that they should migrate all files to another PC, but I was disregarded, and immediately after I filed a report with the ombudsman and her superiors at the ministry. The head of department was reprimanded, which got into her permanent record, and the practice ceased immediately. A few weeks ago, they called me over some important documents they had lost on a very important case. I told them to go F themselves and watched in happiness as my boss personally lost the case with a penalty of $18+ million. Icing on the cake is that a bunch of my colleagues left their job too in a matter of months, and now the office is in a real crisis with lack of human resources and qualified staff. Only people left in the office are the boss's moochers, and they have started spiraling due to the pressure of having for the first time to do their actual job. The next one is titled, Wife of 5 years cheated and now I feel absolutely nothing for her. Nothing, and that scares me. Here are the key details. My, 34, wife, 32, Wendy, and I met through friends 7 years ago, dated for 2 years and have been married for 5 years, just after I finished law school. I worked my tail off as an associate at my firm, putting in 60 hours a week for the first 2 years of our marriage. That effort paid off and I'm doing well professionally. Wendy was a teacher at a private school, but as soon as we got married, she quit so she could go back to school for her master's in education and is currently in an educational doctoral program while working part-time. This was a bit of financial strain, since I wanted to pay off my student loans as quickly as possible, but we managed. My wife had an old laptop that she was using when we started dating. I found it in a box in a closet. She said it crashed and wouldn't work any longer. I plugged it in, tried to turn it on. Nothing. When we met, Wendy took pictures of everything, primarily selfies of her with others. Knowing that she must have had some pictures of us from that time, I yanked the hard drive and looked at it. It seemed okay. The problem must have been somewhere else. Wanting to surprise her with pictures of when we first started dating, I waited until she left to go visit her sister before I plugged it into a SATA cable connector to my PC. There were pictures there, plenty of pictures. Some were of us on dates, laughing, smiling. They brought back some good memories. But there were also others of her with different people. One person in particular I remembered. His name was Bob, and Wendy had dated him before me. There were lots of pictures of her and Bob. I wanted to grab only our pictures, so I thought the easiest way would be to organize them by date, figuring the latest pictures would be of only us. But when I clicked them by date, a lot of her pictures with Bob were jumbled up with pictures of us. I began to open the pictures one by one and noticed that in a few of her pictures with Bob, where they were cuddling and kissing, she was wearing a necklace, locket that I had given her as a birthday present in the second year we were dating. I had to borrow the money from my brother to buy it. I looked at the dates on the pictures and a pattern emerged. On the days and weekends when school required my undivided attention, the times when she went to her mother's house, or her sister's house, to give me peace and quiet, she was meeting up with Bob behind my back. I was furious. It felt like fire ants were chewing on my brain, my heart, in my guts. I wanted to punch through the walls, but then, something snapped, and I went numb. I began to see and think in very cold, analytical terms. I copied all of her pics, all of them, not just those I'd seen, to a flash drive. I packed a bag, grabbed some suits, took the thumb drive and went to stay with my brother across town. I left her laptop hard drive plugged into my PC with a picture of her kissing Bob on the monitor. The only note I left behind was a sticky note with an arrow on it pointing to the necklace, locket. Wendy tried to call me from her mother's house, if that's where she really was, but I didn't answer. It wasn't until a few hours later, after she presumably got back to our apartment and saw the picture on the monitor, that she blew up my phone with VMs and texts. I ignored them all. I've already met with another associate who works in the family law department about separation and divorce. We have no children or real property, since a lot of our money went to paying off my loans and for her tuition. My firm circled the wagons around me, so her calls go to VM. She's not allowed onto the property, security already turned her away. Wendy tracked me down at my brother's house, but he made it clear to her on the phone that if she tries to come over, he'll set his Dobermans on her. He told me she was screaming, sobbing, and begging on the phone. It didn't make me sad or happy or anything. I felt nothing. My marriage is over. I've accepted that, but it's been 2 days and I still feel nothing. No pain, no anger. Nothing. How is it possible that I have no more feelings for her, no desire to ever see her again, no desire to reconcile? Now that I'm alone with my thoughts, feeling this nothing for her scares me. Is this going to last? Am I still in shock? Am I permanently broken? The upside is that I've never seen clearer solutions in my cases. Update number 1. First, let me thank everyone for your replies. I'm overwhelmed by the positive responses and want to thank everyone who's experienced the same numbness for sharing with me. It helps to know that it's a normal response. I'll look into individual counseling in the near future. The associate at my firm handling my case, let's call her Gail, reviewed the other pictures on the flash drive and found quite a few where Wendy is cuddling, kissing Bob, and the engagement ring I gave her is easily discernible. When I was told this, I didn't feel any pain or anger, only elation. I smiled. Oddly enough, I asked Gail why this awful news made me happy. She said that it's because it vindicates every action I've taken since I left. I've been NC with Wendy and all communications have been through Gail, except for her family and friends who mistakenly think my brother and his wife will be a sympathetic ear. They're not. Gail's already prepared a separation agreement and scheduled a meeting with Wendy on Thursday afternoon. Gail made it clear to Wendy that if she isn't represented by counsel, then I won't be attending. A word about Gail. I can't post her firm nickname, but let's just say if you think Pit Viper, you'd get the right idea. I'm glad she's on my side. We'll be filing the petition for divorce shortly. Gail believes any spousal support will be minimal and end quickly, i.e., she said I'll likely get stuck paying the rent for the next 5 months until our lease ends and Wendy completes the last of her doctoral courses. The only significant asset we have is the account with our savings for a down payment on a house. But it's a dual signature account with no ATM access. Thank you, long forgotten bank guy, for suggesting that as an extra security measure against fraud. My Sil went over to my apartment when Wendy was supposed to be at her part-time job to grab more of my clothes and personal items. She ended up listening to Wendy for a couple of hours. The Redditor who said Wendy would straight up lie about pretty much everything nailed it. The whole time Sil was packing up my stuff, Wendy was telling one easily provable lie after another. Getting nowhere, Wendy asked Sil, "Isn't there a guy in your background that just gets inside your head, and you can't say no?" So, I guess that's my answer to why she cheated. Bob is a Jedi and Wendy is weak-minded. By the way, Sil did answer her question. Yes, I married him. Spending time with my brother's family has kept me from feeling isolated. My nephews are crushing me in video game and I'm enjoying every second of it. Work's going great and the partner who oversees my department stopped by to tell me that he's really proud of how I haven't let this personal issue negatively affect my work. Well, that's it for now. Thank you to everyone that replied with supportive posts. I can't explain how much it helps to know I'm not the only one to go through something like this or the apathy I feel toward my STBX. Update number 2. Wendy found a lawyer, Todd. Gail and I met with them on neutral ground at another firm. We all had to wear masks due to COVID, which made it look like we were there to rob the place or something. It was the first time I'd seen Wendy since she left to go to her sister's mother's house. Wendy looked like hell. Bloodshot eyes, dark bags underneath. Tear had streaked her makeup. The skin on her neck was covered in hives. I looked at her and felt nothing. More on that later. The second she saw me, Wendy blurted out that she was sorry for everything, that she loved me, that she couldn't live without me, that this was all a mistake, all the standard garbage. She tried to hug me, but Gail inserted herself between us and told Todd to remind Wendy that she is not to speak directly to me or Gail. That she is to talk to Todd who will talk to Gail who will talk to me. Gail had told me to say nothing and keep a blank expression on my face. I thought this would be hard since I've been worrying about if my initial anger would return, but it didn't. I was still numb, kind of in a daze, like an out-of-body experience. Todd asked about reconciliation. Gail made it clear that we were there to review the separation agreement. Nothing else. Wendy yelled at me that we've been married for 5 years, and I shouldn't throw it all away over a mistake. Gail reminded Todd that Wendy was not to speak to me directly. Todd whispered something to Wendy, and she momentarily got control of herself again. Gail and Todd began discussing the separation agreement that she'd emailed him. Todd said he did but didn't think it was fair to Wendy. He tried to nitpick, likely to show Wendy he was doing something to earn his fee, but Gail knocked down every argument he made until he admitted that it was as fair as the law requires. Wendy said that none of this is fair, because this is all a mistake. Gail spread black and white printouts across the table of all the pictures from the flash drive with Wendy kissing, hugging Bob where her engagement ring is clearly visible. Gail circled the ring in each picture with a big fat, dark red marker, alpha move, by the way, asking Todd each time, "Does your client believe this was a mistake? How about this? Was this a mistake? No? What about this one?" Wendy collapsed back into her chair to ugly cry. Gail and Todd began discussing timelines for delivery of a signed settlement agreement and other matters going forward. I guess my silent indifference finally got to Wendy because, completely unprompted, she screamed out that she never cheated during the marriage. Gail wasn't having it and told Todd, "Tell your client to give me her cell phone. If your client hasn't cheated during the marriage, then she won't have a problem with my IT guy copying everything on it and downloading everything in any online accounts she's logged into. I can have him here in 10 minutes. Wendy clutched her cell phone with both hands, refusing to hand it over. Todd whispered something to Wendy. I'm certain he told her she just admitted to cheating. Cue more sobbing. I smiled underneath my mask but said nothing. At this point, I felt sorry for Todd. call it professional empathy. I've been in his shoes before. You know, you've got a loser case with a loser client. The other attorney is 1982 to 1986 Wayne Gretzky, and you're a second-string high school goalie with a slow glove hand. Basically, you just want the beating to end. When the meeting was over, I left without saying a word to Wendy. What's the use? Every word out of her mouth is going to be a lie. Gail received the signed separation agreement yesterday afternoon. I thought I'd be on the hook for the rent until June, if only to protect my own credit. But instead we're going to equally divide the home down payment savings account. This was the carrot to get Wendy to sign the separation agreement so quickly. Wendy will pay the rent herself starting this month, along with all utilities, etc. Between housing costs and her school costs, she'll have a little money left over, enough to move to a new place. Apparently, Wendy thinks this was a win for her, but it's a tactical move that eliminates the one significant asset we had. Divorce now will be much easier. Gail is preparing a petition for an uncontested divorce, so we won't even have to go to court. Here's the best news. Turns out that while we were in our 5th year of marriage, we haven't been married for a full 5 years. 4 years and 7 months. In our state, if the marriage is less than 5 full years, then the family court typically seeks rescission, a concept borrowed from contract law. This means the court will put the parties back in the financial position they were in before the agreement, or in our case, before the marriage. Immediately before our marriage, I was a jobless, heavily indebted law school graduate waiting on my bar results, while Wendy was a full-time, fully employed teacher. With no real property, no children, her account full of money, a teaching credential, a graduate degree in hand, and soon a doctoral degree to go with it, Wendy can't make the argument that rescission isn't appropriate in this case. In short, no alimony. Gail did warn Todd that if Wendy contests the divorce, the first person she'll depose will be Bob. Todd replied that Wendy agreed not to contest the divorce. If all goes well, 3 months from now I will be putting this sad chapter of my life behind me. I still feeling nothing for Wendy, but that no longer scares me. The Redditor who said it was because the Wendy I dated, married never existed was right. You, sir, are wise. The Wendy I dated, fell in love with and married never existed. The person who cheated on me and lied to me is a stranger. Our entire relationship was all a lie, an elaborate, Plan B, illusion that benefited her at my expense. I think my mindset also has to do with my first real job, between college and law school, when I worked in commission sales. There was a phrase drilled into our heads. You have to get through a lot of no's to get one yes, so don't worry about the no's, don't waste your time and effort on them, and you'll find your yes a lot faster and easier. Wendy was a no, and I wasted too much time and effort on her already, so no more. Friends, family and coworkers have noted that my smile is back, and, to be honest, I feel better than I have in years. But just to be on the safe side, I have scheduled a few phone, video appointments with a therapist. We'll see how that goes. This will likely be my last update. Thank all of you again for your support and wisdom. If I can repay your excellent advice with some of my own. If your spouse cheats on you, talk to a lawyer as quickly as possible and then listen to what your lawyer tells you to do. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.